In the tapestry of our existence, each community is a thread woven with stories etched in time. As we start a new year, My Community returns not merely as a series, but as a journey into the very principle of what makes Barbados whole. Here on our beautiful island, we find more than just geographical distinctions. We continue to uncover the living and the breathing narratives that continue to shape the collective consciousness of our people. It's a journey that transcends the physical boundaries of our neighborhoods and invites us to ponder the intangible connections that bind us all. My Community 2024 becomes more than a lens. It's your tapestry of our heritage. Each community, a chapter in a story that stretches across time, whispers truth about who we are, where we have been, and where we aspire to go. This is My Community 2024, revealing Barbadian tapestry.
Everywhere I go, people want to know.
And so we begin with a grateful heart. We thank Sir David Seal and the folks of the People's Market for pledging their support to this community-based television series, My Community. And so, with the much-needed help from our sponsor, the invaluable contribution of our guest, and the very good work of my production team, I welcome you to this edition of My Community. Thanks for joining us, not merely as a spectator, but as a seeker of wisdom and a keeper of community stories willing to share with all. In this narrative, we shall explore the sanctuaries of memory, the streets where history whispers, and the homes where culture resides. We will continue on a journey that transcends boundaries, inviting us to reflect on the deeper currents that shape the soul of Barbados. Today we find ourselves in the warm embrace of the Pine community, a place that holds countless memories, stories, and the shared experiences of its residents. As we walk through the familiar streets and pause in the heart of this vibrant neighborhood, we are giving voice to two gentlemen who called the Pine home. From childhood adventures to life lessons learned, each story is a unique chapter in the larger narrative of what makes this community so special.
You know, there was this movie called The Sound of Music. And in The Sound of Music, they say, let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Well, we're looking at looking back at the Pine House area where it started. It's a very intriguing, romantic, and a story of adventure, a story of hope, a story of stress, and certainly a story where what we call a kind of miraculous story. In actual fact, after the 1948 flood, many people, that flood was so devastating that many people from across Barbados, including at first St. Lucie, in this same general area I live in, Halls Road and Martinez Road, Bannister Land, and the Ivy and Treeside Road, those persons were mostly affected by the flood. So then they were transferred from these communities to the Pine. Also, persons from this area, St. Lucie, were also transferred to the Bayland. But what was interesting is that having been transferred to the Pine as a result of the flood, what happened is that there was a special construction of houses to facilitate those that were affected by the flood. In actual fact, the Pine existed before the flood. Okay, those persons were moved from these areas into the Pine. So you'll find that there's a direct synergetic relationship between Halls Road, Martindale's Road, and the Pine in particular, and the Ivy. Now, what is it? I talk about those houses. Those houses were constructed at Hanson Plantation. Hanson Plantation is when you're going up Highgate Hall between the what they call the Cat Rock. It is just above the Cat Rock. But what is interesting about the construction of those houses that they were built out of a bagasse component at Hanson Plantation. That bagasse component meant that you mix the bagasse with concrete. They did had it done in a special way. And that mixture of bagasse and the concrete, the cement, how they did it. They then, after it was all pulled together, they had the molds at the plantation of itself, so that when they have finished built the house, they just transport them to the spot. Those houses were known as Meadow Creek houses. That was a special name given to them. And in actual fact, those houses are still standing up to now, having survived Hurricane Jeanette and all other weather forms that we had in Barbados. Those houses could be found in Harewood Walk, then also when in Princess Royal Avenue, but more so just behind where Kentucky is. You find a lot of those houses still standing, still, and as I said, that withstood the effects of all different kind of natural calamities of the time.
Well, when I first moved into the Pine, my first impression was the lights. I mean, because we had moved from the city into Regent Hill. I remember driving up what we call the Long Road. It's the Pine East-West Boulevard. But in the Pine, we call it the Long Road. Because for us, it's the longest road in the area. I remember driving up there, and then when we got on Regent Hill to just look across at, the rest of Barbados, and the lights as a boy was so mesmerizing. So for me, that was the first impression, especially coming from the city. Right behind the Parkinson Community Center was a cane ground. Where the pasture is now that Parkinson plays on, all that was cane. All of Wildy was cane. All of Rock Close was cane. Almost every part of the Pine was cane except the Regent Hill. It was just Regent Hill and a small part of Parkinson Field. Because in the early days, the van would just come to the top by Parkinson, turn and go back down. It couldn't go any further.
The first bus or buses that ran to the Pine, and that is an interesting story also, were the Weatherhead buses, which came as far as Princess Royal. So the residents had to walk right out about what is now Kentucky to get the Weatherhead buses there to go to town. But then with the expansion of the housing area and the gradual expansion, the buses then came into the Pine and went down what you all will call now as Princess Royal Hill, right down to the bottom, onto the Pine East-West Boulevard, turn around and come back up the hill.
So at one point, the van used to come to NTW and go back down. And then it used to come to the top by Parkinson School and go back down, because it couldn't go no further. Yeah. So then you had it built out, because remember then, the only existence would be to the right. It's just Parkinson Field to the right. And you're right, there was nothing to the left. There was nothing to, because time all none of those things existed. So there's nothing to go to the left to go anywhere. So we thought that is an interesting thing.
The Pine has that kind of history that is very much unknown in terms of the colonial attachment by the residents and the construction of the Pine in those days than any other house in the area in Barbados. For instance, Princess Royal Avenue, just before you get into Bailey Hill, which is in Princess Royal Avenue, to the left is York Terrace. Then you have Sherwood Lane, which, if you remember Robin Hood and Sherwood, you have Sherwood Lane in England too. You have also Phillips Road, Prince Phillips, St. Anne's Road, in the Pine, you have Princess Mary Lane, This is all in the pine housing area. If you look at it even more so, it is a real. It has a lot of the British and Canadian, norms attached to it. For instance, in Regent Hill, you have Birch Path, you have Oakville Lane, Maple Path. All of these trees are foreign to Barbados at that time. So you see, I suspected that they got these names from a man who was the general manager at the time of National Housing, a white man from England named Mr. Connell, right? And that kind of attachment to the British and foreign countries like Canada is still there. It is still there for all to see. That hill in Princess Royal is called Bailey Hill. In actual fact, Bailey shop was the very first shop in the Pine. It is still there on the same side. It's right in the middle of the hill. If you're coming from Kentucky, you're going down the hill on the right hand side. That shop was named after the Baileys. Princess, the hill is known as Bailey Hill, right? Because that hill was named after the Baileys who owned the shop there. It is now, right now, it is a shop that produces spices and other produce for the local consumer market.
The king goes around all the way up. So, the fort is what we call the Fort George, where the water tank is. Yeah. So as boys, so we used to cross over from Pine Plantation to Handsome Plantation. Because there's no Handsome Plantation. You're crossing over from one to the next, right? So we would someday start in Pine Plantation, but we would end up over in Handsome Plantation, way over the hill. By the it was no Fort George. In fact, all of us them beautiful houses in Fort George didn't exist. What was a cane was cotton. Because boys we used to pick cotton. And actually, so let me go back in my brain now. Where the finest creative office is now where they sell bicycles and really sanitation, was the plantation owner's yard. So Gollop used to live in the house where the workshop is, and the plantation yard is where sanitation is now. So as boys used to pick cotton and take to the plantation yard where sanitation is. And remember one thing they also had a yam thing there with this do yam chips and thing. Yeah. So as boys we still go and cut cane, the young boys. We spend most of our days in the cane ground way up in the fort. Especially in December, we doing guavas, and this used to be the sight. So beautiful, the beautiful sight. You ever be among them dunk trees where they're ripening and it's just dropping? So the sights bring back memories, You spend all the whole days up in the fort walking up and down all over the place. And that was our stomping ground, man. And then we would come down and just play football and hang out with each other. But the plantation was a big part of our life. I remember as a boy going to the side door where we is now, where we occupy as pilots and buying yams and potatoes from God at the side door. Who knows that we would have ended up being in the same building to this day, So just show history kind of, turns over things, upside down, but plantation life was part of our life, so and we were in urban Barbados. So imagine we were in urban Barbados, but we experienced plantation life in urban Barbados, picking cotton, digging potatoes, interacting with the plantation yard, watching the cotton grind and the yams, we had beautiful experiences. Next to CBC, Polytechnic, all of them didn't exist. So all that, in fact, where Polytechnic is right up to CDB, was the cotton ground and the potato ground. Yeah, that was cotton and potato in that area. Parkinson School, where you can stand from CBC and see blocks, that used to be the pasture. So that was the pasture there. The pasture actually, the big pasture in the building where Parkinson used now doesn't exist. And I told that was cane and what we call like little mountains and those ones. And therefore, all of that highway didn't exist. It was like cane and bush and stuff. Um, so so you could imagine that nights it used to be dark. You know, we had if there's problems, no, it's street lights. So you imagine you had right? So it's street lights. So one of the eerie things about growing up in an area like that in the 70s is the darkness. At night there was an eeriness, and then you saw had at that time pictures like Barbados Collins. Barbados Collins was popular at the time, so you know you go on them this Newton when they're watching Barbados Collins, and then the night dark, you don't want to go home, but you gotta go home, you know. So it was the darkness of growing up in the streets, because the streets were dark in the early days before you had one or two more street lights. But a lot of what exists now around Parkinson School, in terms of CBC and the Polytechnic and all of that, that build up, you know, in the factory was cane, cotton, or potatoes. Where the Pioneers Resource Center is now, everything below there was cane. None of those houses existed when I first came into the Pine. None, not one. So I remember when you come to the left of the resource center where you know is Elbar Park, there was always this whole string of myrtle trees, what we call myrtle trees, casuarina trees. And once you get in those casuarina trees and you look to the west, none of those houses existed. So why is no Meadow Road, Northwood, none of those houses? It was just cane. And above the Elbar Park, what we now call Bottom Close, Wildy, none of that existed either. It was just cane. I remember we used to got this little cave up on top Regent Hill where the rest of the guys had the agriculture project. And we used to got this little cave up there on top of the hill that we would hide out in summer vacation from school. Yeah, but all around us was just cane. So we were literally living in the middle of canes, in the middle of a cane, right? The pine plantation was a huge plantation. None of North Wildy will be none to the south of Plymouth Great River. So none of that existed when I first came into the Pine. It's all canes. So much so that I remember when they started to build the houses over in the East Wildy, they had some problems with foundations because obviously it was cane rum, and therefore, you know, some of the foundation was soft and thing. So the planes just cane. It was truly a plantation. We were a urban Barbados with a rural experience.
After the expansion of the Pine, because you can follow the development and expansion in the Pine in stages, then what is now commonly known as MTW was then the Public Works Department. And the Public Works Department is where we used to watch with fascination all the buses, heavy duty trucks, cars, everything, all those vehicles going there to get their mechanical checks and all of that. It was simply fascinating to us as children. Embedded in the Pine Housing area at that time, besides the Public Works Department, which is now MTW, was the National Housing Corporation workshop, where they would build the windows, the doors for the houses in the Pine. And if you had any repairs needed, you could get the workmen to come and fix them up. You know, it was right there. It's still there in the Pine, along the Pine East-West Boulevard stretch. But what's even more interesting within the precincts of the Pine housing area, because people don't realize that the agricultural farm down the Pine East-West Boulevard, which we call the Pine Livestock Station at that time, not as far more developed than that. You have within the Pine housing area of itself, you have, CBC came about around 62, around there. But the point is, the Pine housing area is one of those areas that have a lot of businesses, and certainly at that early time, the Pine was well known.
Oh yes, the Pine is renowned for its many positive attributes. In fact, for many years it has been a beacon of cultural richness, sporting prowess and vibrant community groups. Think of unity, harmony and cohesion and you'll find a roadmap etched by the pine, a roadmap that influenced communities across the island who adopted the pine's motto. Rodney Grant and Hamila now take us into a discussion on that impactful legacy of the pine community.
It wasn't hard for us as boys to, kind of like fit in. And at a very young age, they always had like social movements in the pine.
Colin Nelson, then, who's Dr. Omawali Elson now. In Princess Royal, it formed the first youth group in the pine called the People's Youth Group, right? The People's Youth Group, which is more or less a cultural and community-based organization. They were based in Blackman Field around the Princess Royal area. Then you had a dance group. One of the first dance group, cultural dance groups that came out in the pine was the Orlanders, headed by Miss Merle Ferguson from Oakville Lane in the pine, and she had about 15 children living in a two-bedroom house, and she raised all of them without a father. Produced a dance group, Mary Ferguson. Out of that home, she was the leader of the all-girls band at the time. She's living now in Carrington Village near Bearcroft Road. You had a number of cultural organizations. The Pinans came in. You had Pinans Social and Cultural Youth Group headed by Michael Newton at the time, which introduced a lot of the youngsters to the cultural activities and norms of the time, including steel band.
I readily found myself under the wings of Michael Newton, who had then what you call the Pioneer Social Cultural Youth Group. And I used to actually run over his mother's house, Miss Newton, at the corner. Miss Newton was the Newton family was the largest family in the Pine. It was about like 13 of them. She had like 10, 13 children or something like that. But it was a popular family. They were very dominant in football at the time. We had the West Ham Football Club, which was the representative football team for the Pine at the time. And they had about 3 or 4 brothers on the team. The team used to get managed out their house. So, they were the caretakers of the community at the time. They used to hold the key for the community center, So Michael was the head then of the PSCYG, and then, he come for some reason and pick me up one day and tell me come with him. Because it was a little troublesome, like talking of big rocks, I think, So, Michael came for me and tell me come with him one day. And he used to go and repair tires in Carrington Village. And he took me along with him, and then, I got roped into the club, we used to plan little dances in the center, and, I used to help pick the rice, to make the rice and straw and thing as a boy, and I got roped in, I'm very early from there with Michael, and then shortly after that, me and Hammy came on the scene with the Regents Youth Group in 1972. Then I was part of the youth arm, because Regents, they had an adult arm and a youth arm in Regents, and I remember we used to hold a lot of these competitions and with quizzes. And, Hammy used to always ease and give me the answers. Because Hammy was the quiz master. So Hammy would ease and give me the answers. And we would always end up beating the adults. So it was fun. We used to have a lot of fun days, a lot of fun days growing up in the Pine. And then we had older people like Smokey Burke, and we used to got the singing competitions in the center, and Dudley and the Grisette's brothers, Tony and Michael. So it's got these competitions in the Pine in the center in the early days. So it's really fantastic. I mean, and then we used to got like movie nights. I remember the mobile thing used to move around and used to come and do a movie night for us sometimes in the center, GIS, I think it was. So I being growing up in the Pine was so excited. And the fact that then the Pine was surrounded by cane grounds, that's every boy's dream. Pine Plantation, remember, was one of the largest plantations ever. And so we literally step out the Pine Community Center, used to step in the cane ground. Yeah, so, having those activities in the early days was it was a thrill for us because, nothing, a lot used to happen beside, you know, some of the social activities that you try to plan. So growing up was fun, man. I remember, you know, we walking down as boys to the Rudolph's driving because we used to sit down on the top of the hill where BET is and watch the movies from there because it was a large movie. And again, right behind the Rudolph's driving was the cane ground as well. Everything was just cane. So we used to sit down on the hill where you call them coming down BT Hill. We didn't have to go in and drive in and pay. We used to sit down front there and watch the movies, Bud and Lou and the westerns and thing in the early days. So there's so much things for us to have fun as boys growing up. Where the car park now for the gymnasium is, that's where it was. So actually, like down behind between the gymnasium and there's an insurance surgical at the front. That all of that was the parking area, and the screen used to be facing up the hill. Yeah, so we used to sit down on the hill and just watch the movies as boys. We can hear really interested in her. You know, in that times to remember it was the Bud and Lou era. So a lot of the movies you used to watch were silent movies. It was just see the action. So we didn't accustomed to it. And you know, as boys there, we don't care that we can't hear. We just too glad that we can have that experience because we didn't have a TV at them times. And again, only to Miss Newton had a TV. And you should see 15 of we line up on Miss Newton when they're trying to watch one TV. So Miss Newton had a TV, and I remember Richard Stout, actually, God rest his soul, at the top where he used to live at the top of our gap. And they used to have a TV in that house as well. So we either there or we over by Miss Newton. Can you imagine when two people got TVs? Probably nobody ain't got a phone in them things. Them things was luxuries. So, you know, so to have, you know, be able to watch that large screen for us was like larger than life. You know, so we had it all within our minds. We had it all within the brain. We had free cinema. We had some of the best singers ever. You know, we had one of the most outstanding football teams always. We had an outstanding netball team always. So we grew up feeling, always felt that, you know, people look at us negatively, but we feel that we had a lot going for we in our minds. You know, people didn't see what we saw, but we always felt we had a lot going for us, you know.
Well, from the cultural enthusiasts to sporting champions and dedicated community advocates, the Pine has been a canvas painted with stories of unity and positive influence. Thankfully, our exploration does not end here. In our next episode, we shall detail that impactful work of the many social, cultural, community and sporting groups and understand how these organizations have left an indelible mark on the lives of the youngsters, serving as guiding lights and fostering a spirit of excellence here in this community. Next week, we shall continue to unravel the rich tapestry that binds us all together here on Mind Community. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Thanks for your time.